Shags and I often argue that Missouri is one of the best fishing states in the country. I think it's undeniable that it is. But another state, one we both love, Minnesota, ranks right up there with it. A little bit of different kind of fishing, more natural lakes, a lot of ice, but still trout, bass, walleye, northern perch, you name it, Minnesota's got it. And today's guest knows quite a bit about fishing the land of 10,000 lakes. I'm Brandon Butler.
I'm Nathan Shags McLeod.
I'm Scott Mackenthun, semi-professional fish squeezer.
And welcome to the Drifting Outdoors podcast. So before we get started, because we both have quite a few connections with Minnesota and the Great North, we should give Trisha and the Heritage Foundation another shout out. What another amazing Missouri State archery tournament they put on in Branson, and every year it just keeps growing and growing, and it's always so incredible. It makes me proud to be on the board of the Missouri Conservation Heritage Foundation, and it was just an amazing time.
Yeah, I couldn't agree anymore. It leaves you motivated by all the young people who are interested in archery, and it's such a good pool of candidates for future hunters. By no means are all of those kids going to end up being bow hunters. A lot of them are just shooting archery for fun, for an athletic competition. But in a world where we're trying to recruit bow hunters or hunters in general of good ilk, these young people would make incredible bow hunters. So it's neat to see that pool of people out there. And again, tip of the cap to Trisha, everyone. It's top notch all the way across the board.
Well, and even if they don't become hunters, at least they'll be advocates for the outdoors, and I would hope hunting, because they know the importance of archery, and it's just it's a good group of kids of all ages really competing, and it's fun to watch them fling arrows. It's pretty wild.
Yeah, and no doubt, I'm with you 100%. I just wanted to get a plug in for hunting before you took a shot with golf. So, so kids, bow hunters are cooler than golfers. So.
Oh, don't get me started, because I went out this week.
You were telling me. I mean, that's what our pregame talk is all about.
Unpaid post staffer Tim Planner and I went out on Wednesday, snuck out of work, and went and hit 18. And we stuck to our guns, because both him and I like to keep balls in our pockets because we get frustrated with shots. And we're like, no, we'll scramble. Let's see how good we can do together. But no breakfast balls, no lunch balls, no brunch balls, no dinner balls, no mulligans. And we shot an 83. So for our first time out, not the best, not the worst. I can't wait to get back out there again and try it.
Now, Scott, you've been working NAS tournaments up in Minnesota. I want to jump into that, but first tell people what your job is. Tell people what you do for a living.
Yeah, you bet. For the past 17 years, I've worked for the Minnesota Department of Natural Resources within the Division of Fish and Wildlife in the section of fisheries. Came on board back in 2008 as a fishery specialist, and now I oversee a 7-county area as a fisheries supervisor.
Now, I really want this to be an intervention to try to bring Shags back to the outdoors, because I know he does have a big place in his heart for Minnesota. He played college basketball up there. He did an amazing trip, sold out last year up to Lake of the Woods, and he's replicating that. So he does say, though, that he didn't take nearly advantage of Minnesota the way he should have when he lived there. He didn't fish the state. So I'm thinking we can try to get him hooked and pull him off of those fairways and back onto the water by injecting a little Minnesota love into his life. So tell
Good
people
luck.
about Minnesota and in general. I mean, you're an all-around outdoorsman, but just give a shout out to the state you love so much.
Yeah, it's funny. This came up today in a radio interview that I did. That we're really proud of the fishing and the fishing opportunities we have in Minnesota. We're pretty proud of the amount of licenses we sell and the people that come here. It's a kind of a destination state. We have Lake Superior, so we have the tie-in with a Great Lake. We have this amazing area in the Driftless, and Brandon, you and I have fished down there together. Um, Absolutely incredible part of the state with stream trout. We've got the best muskie fishing in the United States. We grow the largest muskies here with our own special Leech Lake strain. Of course, we are the state of fishing. We have walleye as our state fish, and we have some really incredible walleye habitat as both of all three of us have experienced in separate trips or together at Lake of the Woods and our other large walleye lakes. And up and down, Boundary Waters Canoe Area Wilderness and amazing bass fisheries that are nationally ranked and incredible panfish and unbelievable lake sturgeon and flathead and channel catfish. So you put it all together, it's pretty amazing. And then the thing I picked up on or mentioned on the radio today, and we'll mention here too, it just came off the Bassmaster Classic, and who won it? A Minnesotan. So
22-year-old kid, right?
Easton
Oh,
Fothergill, yeah,
yeah.
real.
See, and he went through a hard time prior to winning it. I mean, what an amazing story. Congratulations to him and the state of Minnesota.
Oh yeah, it's awesome. Great young man. I mean, we were just talking about National Archery in the Schools program. Another feeder program we have here in Minnesota is the Student Angler Tournament Trail and the Lund Virtual Fishing League. And Easton fished in that SATT, and that he rode those coattails all the way to college fishing. And then you saw what happened from there. And just like you said, Brandon, to go from real tough luck fishing to being on top of the world and to deal with some medical issues of his own. I mean, just incredible story.
Yeah, it was pretty emotional to watch him hoist that trophy up. It was a special moment in fishing. I mean, it's the kind of story that they could make a movie about, really. It's like the Lane Frost of bass fishing, except he's still alive, thankfully.
Yeah.
Little difference, I guess. um yeah, going to Minnesota when I was a kid was the way Shags tells the story about Cooper, his nephew, and going fishing in Missouri is his favorite thing to do, like over Disney World. That's what Minnesota was to me. We had a boat. I still have the boat. My grandpa got it in 1988, Starcraft. When I'd go to his house anytime, I'd get in the garage and climb up in that boat and pretend like I was driving down a lake. And when I was driving down a lake, it was usually Lake Osakis by Alexandria, the little town of Osakis, maybe what, 2 hours north of the Twin Cities, hour and a half
Yep.
north of the Twin, right in the center of the state. And I got to go multiple times there. I was fishing Lake Osakis on 9/11. I could point to you exactly where I was, standing in the bow of the same boat, throwing a spinner bait down along a grass bed in the back of a cove, and was catching largemouth when I heard the towers get hit. So Minnesota was always this like fantasy land for me, and I couldn't wait to get there. I've gotten to explore some of it in my outdoor writing career, Lake of the Woods, and been to Brainerd and other places, but never even come close to scratching the surface. I'm really interested in diving into kind of some of your favorite aspects of fishing in Minnesota.
Yeah, I mean it's a little bit of everything. I mean, I think about, Shags was talking about his time being a basketball player or being up in good old St. Paul, being a Concordia Bear, and I was just up the road a little further at the University of Minnesota Twin Cities. I needed to get an education in fisheries and aquatic biology, and I specifically chose to go there because I knew I'd be in the concrete jungle. Then get a little bit older, and I find it sort of funny that I will actually trailer up my boat and head towards the Twin Cities because we'll be fishing on pool 2 of the Mississippi River, heading up to the St. Croix River to fish for lake sturgeon in the fall and just clip the eastern side of the Twin Cities. So there really is great fishing all the way around you, almost every corner of the state. I say almost just because, if you go to extreme southwestern Minnesota, there are some places that don't have a natural lake, but they'll have their own moments where they'll have reservoirs or they'll have a river that runs through there with unique opportunities. You just never know. But yeah, I mean, I think people that travel places can associate towns with towns within a state, and for me it's water bodies. I think the language of anglers is to know places by water bodies, though, that this river, that lake, whatever it might be, and that's the familiarity. We have 87 counties in Minnesota, and I believe I've cast a line in every county at this point, so pretty cool.
That's awesome. And don't let Brandon fool you. Like, I did do fishing when I fished quite a bit when I was in college, but when you don't have a vehicle of your own and you don't know the surrounding areas, you don't have a lot of opportunities. But I was introduced to something I'd never even heard of before, which your state is very famous for, and that's fishing with leeches. I remember being in the boat the first time when someone was like, "All right, here's a jig head. Well, what are we gonna put on there? A minnow, a worm?" He's like, "No, a leech." I was like, "What?" He's like, "Oh no, it's really easy. You just let him put him right on your fingernail there, and then we hook him through." And that's something I couldn't get over. I was like, I don't know if I can touch a leech, and it still makes me laugh. My first interaction on a lake trying to put a leech on a hook. I think it fell off and it was on the floor of the boat, and I was trying to hook it off the floor of the boat so I wouldn't have to touch it.
Now, I wasn't trying to give you any shit. I think you yourself have said
Yeah, I
that
could have
you were
done
so
more.
busy playing basketball that you just
Yes.
didn't get to fish as much as you wanted to. Like
Yep.
that's all I meant.
That's true. That's true. Yes. I have a lot of fun. I mean, we could just tell Minnesota stories. There was a lot of firsts for me up there. I was talking to Scott before we started recording. At Concordia, I got introduced to tunnels to where it got so cold you didn't have to go outside because everything was connected with tunnels. And then the winter weather advisory, when they were telling you it's so cold, don't go outside or you will die. or the snow plows where they try to warn you you may want to move your vehicle because we're plowing the streets. I can't tell you how many times I came out and when I had my little pickup truck my senior year and you couldn't see it because there was a 10-foot snowbank that had just engulfed it and I had to sit there and chisel it out just enough to get in and start it up. It was quite the experience in Ono, don't you know, Minnesota up there.
Oh yeah, I've had a vehicle towed in a snowstorm on the college campus, so I feel your pain on that one. And you're exactly right. Most of the big colleges and universities, there's underground tunnels or there's skyway systems, and it's even changed in the 20 years plus since I've been a college student, where our winters aren't quite as severe as they used to be. But no, it comes in handy when the wind chill is about 40 below. You're right about that.
But there's always one native. There's always one kid that was wearing soccer shorts. And
Yeah,
every single every single winter. Oh, it's not that bad.
yeah. The guy that's going to teach Phi Ed somewhere, the education major. Yep.
Well, one lake that we've all got in common, we touched on a little bit, is Lake of the Woods. I've been up there twice, open water fishing, once ice fishing. What a fishing destination Lake of the Woods is. It's almost the size of a Great Lake. It's so big. Shags is, taking his busload of people up there on the Fish with Shags experience from work. I'll let him tell you a little bit more about that, but we might as well dig in and get some tips for all them people getting on the bus with you on how to fish Lake of the Woods.
All
Yeah,
right.
I mean,
Well,
it's an all-inclusive trip. It's actually a pretty sweet deal. It's $1,350 and everything's included. Other than, of course, you got to buy your out-of-state fishing license, and then they ask you to bring some cash up to tip the staff and the guides, of course. But round trip transportation. We get on a big charter bus. We leave on Sunday. We come back on Thursday. It's 3 days guided fishing. All your meals are included: breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Of course, your stay at Ballard's Resort. I think it's 4 nights, and all the tax, the lodge tax, the fish cleaning. They package up your fish for you. All that. It's all included. I'm not going to lie, the bus ride is really long, but when you get up there and you see how beautiful it is, it makes it worth it. And then the ride back is long, and then we have a whole year to forget about how long it was, and we get excited to go do it again. And honestly, it happens August 3rd to the 7th. So we leave Missouri in August, where it's arguably like the worst month out of the year because it's so gross and so hot. And you go up to the Boundary Waters, Lake of the Woods. And last year, it was like the high of 75. Like you had a light jacket or a sweatshirt on in the morning and the evening, and it was just beautiful. But it was the first time I've ever fished like a big lake to where you could get out there and not see land because of how large a lake is. I mean, growing up in Oregon, we had reservoirs and we had some lakes, but nothing like the Great Lakes or even Lake of the Woods. It was a really cool experience for me because it was definitely a first.
If it helps put it in any perspective, this is what I tell you, and this is as someone that gets a chance to fish Lake of the Woods pretty frequently. I tell people that your best day of fishing in most places in Minnesota is still probably not going to be as good as your worst day at Lake of the Woods. It's that quality of fishing up there. There's walleye, there's sauger. It's huge. It's a super productive fishery on the fish management side of things. There's an impeccable data set where it's carefully managed and it just keeps moving along humming like a top. I mean, that the harvest that happens is sustainable, and then you still get an opportunity at those big, beautiful trophy fish that are in the protective slot that you can put back. So it really is a walleye fishing paradise, and you guys are set up well to go up there that time of year with ballards.
And it was interesting. Explain a little bit the difference between like your state limit and your lake limit, because that was something new to me when I went up there. I brought a big cooler thinking, oh, we got 3 days of guided fishing, I'm bringing 3 limits of fish home, and that's not how it works.
Yeah. So Lake of the Woods, for one, is a border waters, so it's slightly different, and it has some special regulations on it where it's different than Minnesota's other waters, inland waters. Minnesota, we're probably a little strange this way when I travel out of state. Many places, we think about when you're bird hunting, your possession limit is often 2 or 3 times what your daily limit is. And Minnesota's been very conservative that way. With the exception of yellow perch, there's no other species that you can double up a daily limit on. So your daily limit actually is your possession limit, and there's a pretty nice limit up there where you can have a combined bag of walleyes and saugers. You can go in, maybe have a few that you set aside that go into the freezer. Some others you take right into the resort, right into Ballards. They'll cook them right up there for you, and you can keep on fishing to fill what's left. So yeah, you're right. We don't have folks that typically travel out of there with a cooler full of fish, but they still have a heck of a time, and they're going out there with a clicker, having those 50 to 100 fish days, and having a nice meal of fish up there, and usually coming home with another meal.
No, it's, and you're completely right. Usually that first day, if you catch your limit, you eat it. That's Monday, or your first night there's dinner is fresh caught walleye and sauger. So then that opens up your limit again to keep them. And you're right though; those guides, they all have it up there. They got the clickers on, or they're counting in there, and they're on it because you can have, I can't remember what it is, but so many walleye and so many sauger, and you can combine the two, but you can't have more walleye than you can sauger or something. But that's what the guides are for. That's not. I don't need to keep that math going. I'm just there to catch some fish. But you were right. We caught everything from big old jumbo perch to walleye to sauger. I caught a real nice northern. One of the guys in our boat caught a lake sturgeon. I mean, you never knew what you were gonna reel in when you felt that tap tap.
You can definitely
Yeah.
go on Facebook and see a lot of photos from that trip too. It looks like you guys had a great time.
Yeah, it was an awesome trip. You got to drop that cash, man. Put it on the driftwood card. Come up with us this year. We still got a couple of spots left.
I got another trip I'm doing instead.
Little
I didn't
company.
get invited to that one, Scott.
You did get invited by him, but I went ahead and answered for you and said that he won't go in a canoe for 2 hours, let alone 5 days.
Oh, I don't fit in canoes. That's bad.
What did I
news.
say, Scott? What was my exact quote?
Yeah.
He doesn't. He won't
He
go.
doesn't-
He doesn't fit in canoes.
I don't fit in
Yep.
canoes.
I know.
And I'm getting too old anymore. I had to go get an MRI on my knee today because it's ballooned up on me and is all swollen, and they can't tell me what's wrong. I can't.
Well,
It hurts to sit down. It hurts to stand up. It's like, what is happening? I'm falling apart at 46.
well, since we already talked about golf, we might as well talk about our health problems too. So I actually I went to, so one of the things they did at Raceline when I was still there, once you got to a high enough level, Rudy would send you to get a full blown diagnostic physical, like figure out everything that's wrong with you or will be wrong with you physical. And when I really wanted that, my grandpa died at 63 with heart failure, and diabetes is running my family. So I've really been trying to combat that. So I talked to my doctor about it, and he's like, "Oh, the University of Missouri is doing this special where it's Love Your Heart Month." It was February, and it was like $120, but you got to pay cash, like out of pocket. And gangster hospitals getting that cash money, And but But anyways, went into the whole tube and they just did the all the way around your body CAT scan, like all the way down your torso. So I am awaiting to find out how bad those 2,000 chicken nuggets I've had in my life and 400 Pizza Hut pizzas, what that's done to my arteries in 46 years. So if you guys don't see me for a few weeks, I'll be having heart surgery.
Well, I was in the MRI machine and I fell asleep and they had to wake me up saying, "You're moving around too much. The pictures are blurry." And then I do a morning radio show here and I got out and the technician, she was very polite. She's like, "I don't want to sound like a weirdo, but your voice sounds very familiar. Are you Shags?" And I was like, "Yes, I am." And she's like, "Oh, I love your show. Oh, you guys are so funny." And I kind of giggle and I go, "Well, it's better getting recognized here in an MRI and then at a colonoscopy, I guess."
Yes.
Which you did brand as your photo shoot.
Yeah, my photo shoot. Trying to normalize going to get a colonoscopy.
That's a good
They
way
were
to
very
put it.
tastefully done.
Yeah.
Nice.
We digress. We digress, Scott. Back to Lake of the Woods. Could you go out there and target yellow perch, or is it opportunistic?
I really see that as opportunistic out there. There's maybe some guides that might know some places that they're hanging out, but boy, there are some real jumbos out there as well, particularly fish that show up during the winter time.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I had to look it up since I wasn't up there this year, but and it was changed recently, so I don't want to get people off on the right foot. But I know I have the slot memorized. This is for walleyes now. 19 and a half to 28 is protected, but you can keep six fish underneath that, and that's combined walleye and sauger, but no more than four of those six can be walleye. So that's where the paying attention to what you're catching comes into play. But there are some beautiful perch up there. There's trophy northern pike, there's lake sturgeon, there's amazing burbot or eel pout. We got ciscoes up on the north end on the Canadian side where it's deeper. There's lake trout, there's huge black crappies. I mean, there's just a little bit of everything at Lake of the Woods.
Yeah. So when you go up there, because I know what we use, we kind of just wind drifted with a jig head and either a minnow, a worm, or of course, again, a leech. Do you fish it any other way?
You know, I've had the opportunity to do a little bit of everything, just focusing on the open water period. It's been jig dragging. I've done some lead core where we're putting baits down deep with lead core fishing line that's trolling over the mud middle of the basin on the American side. We've done some down rigging where we're going up to the far north end of the lake again over mud. But there's usually quite a conglomeration of fish up there, and you really get to see some of those bigger walleyes show up in the deeper water down there with downriggers. So a little bit of everything, or you can live bait rig, particularly early in the year when those fish are up shallow on the sand or coming out of the river. So this is one of these places that like you could show up with a tackle box and like, all right, I have never caught anything on this and this, and you could probably slam on that. Or it's like, I can catch them with a jig in a minnow, but this time I think I'm going to go with a artificial crawdad and learn how to Nico rig it, or something just obscure, just for the hell of it, and you'll probably still catch fish.
Well, and talking to those guides up there too, it seems like the big muskie and the big smallmouth are more on the Canadian side
Yeah.
than the U.S. side, correct?
Yep, two more species you just rattled off that have amazing fishing opportunities, and yeah, primarily up on that north end, just owning to habitat differences.
Yeah, that's what they're saying. It's just structure, and you're talking about the mud flats, and that's kind of on the U.S. side. It's more of that type of structure, and then you get on the Canadian side, and you get some stuff that holds different species. Because I know our guide talks about on his days off, they go up and chase like giant muskie and smallmouth, and a lot of those resorts as well. I'm rocking the Ballard's resort vest. They even do like Canadian trips that you got to do a couple of different things, but I believe Ballard's has some cabins on the Canadian side too that they can take you over there and drop you off.
Yeah, kind of a mixed bag. I mean, there's just so many options, right? To be able to jump off and fish the islands and weave your way up through all that Canadian Shield type of a fishery, or spend your time out in that open water where it's super productive and muddy, or you're fishing in the river. I mean, just the amazing river opportunities that come up, and we are just the river is opening right now. Like everyone in Minnesota is getting super excited as you're watching all these resorts in different places that have the live webcams. They're like, oh, it's this far. The ice pack is this far. Like more and more of the river is opening. The launches, it's economically important enough that the counties go out, Beltrami County, Lake of the Woods County, and Coochin County, and they take a front loader and they remove the ice so that the fishermen can put their boats in, because it's just such a driver that they want to be out chasing these big walleyes that are coming in pre-spawn. They want people out getting on top of the lake sturgeon. So it's pretty amazing.
Yeah, it was a really cool trip. I can't wait. Doing it again here in a couple of months.
And you guys are going to be mindful of your health. You're going to eat right and live right. So when you come visit Minnesota, you can smoke cigars and drink whiskey and eat steaks and fried fish, right?
Well, and
No
that was the cool
whiskey,
thing too, because
everything
we
else.
did do a shoreline lunch one of the days, and on one of those islands, and that was another really neat experience. They had a weather shack out there on one of the islands, so if you were out fishing and you got caught in something real nasty, you could head to that island and wait it out. And just, it wasn't a very nice place, but at least it had a roof and some walls on it. I popped in there and checked it out, and they had a real nice wall of photos, a memorial of walleye fishermen that had passed, and it was a neat experience.
Oh, that sounds awesome. Yeah, there's never know when something like that might pop up, but man, that is part of the Canadian slash northern Minnesota tradition, right? If you can find somewhere to pull ashore and have a little shore lunch, fry up some fish, have some potatoes, some onions, some beans. That's that's heaven. I'm pretty sure if I had one last meal on this earth and I could pick anything, it would probably be that.
And you called it. That's exactly what we had. All those things. But it
Uh-huh.
was good, man. Talk about some like fresh fish. Those, we had caught them that morning. They are
Nice.
good.
Hmm. What about the Rainy River? You hear so much about the Lake of the Woods and the Rainy River and how that walleye run occurs up there. Have you fished that walleye run on the river, and is it what it's all cracked up to be?
It is. If there was one place that you were going and you were in Minnesota and you were bound and determined to get that trophy walleye, and we can call that, for some folks maybe that's 28 inches. A lot of folks want to get to the magic 30-inch number. If you're looking for that 28, 29, 30 plus inch fish, hands down, that's where the money is, right? That's where you want to go. That's where the smart money is. Heading up there and fishing in the springtime as those huge, plump females are moving up. They're moving out of the lake and up into the river, and it is absolutely as good as cracked up to be. There's days that it can be absolutely incredible. From the resource management side of it, we used to, as a border waters, there used to be a small amount of allowable harvest, and we started kind of going through things and said, well, people really aren't up there for the harvest component, and there was reason to believe that, well, we might actually be taking out some of the males. We might be male limited, because people have to harvest the small fish, which are typically the males, talking about walleye. That why don't we just continue to allow this opportunity, but make it catch and release and just take the harvest component out of it? And it hasn't slowed the traffic one bit, because it came down to interviewing anglers. Like, what are your motivations for coming up here? Well, I just want to get the boat out. It's the first place that we can do that before all the other lakes open up and where fishing is open and legal, and we've got a crack at these huge fish. That's the primary motivation for a lot of those folks, just to get out and enjoy a day on the water with friends and family, catch these huge fish. And so that ended up being a less than contentious thing, was to take away some of that harvest. You can still do it the rest of the year, but we know that a small component of that Lake of the Woods walleye fishery, a small component, is running up into the rivers and spawning, because the lake itself is still full of all kinds of spawning habitat. And so it is an absolutely amazing place to be. You get to see border country. You get to see your Canadian neighbors coming out and fishing. You get to see um, waterfall and geese and everything else that's making their way through. Goldeneye, some of the first migrating waterfall that are coming back are right on the river, and it's just it really is a magical place to be and spend time bopping around with a jig and a minnow.
Yeah, it's pretty wild to be cruising out there and have the guy tell you that you're riding the Canadian-American border on the lake. He's like, put your hand on the right side, you're in Canada, left side, you're in the US. It's pretty wild.
Yeah, and there's advantages to going to either place. I mean, we talked a little bit about the differences between the American and Canadian side on Lake of the Woods, but even on the Rainy River, there is a boundary there. The Canadians do not want you fishing lake sturgeon on the Canadian side, so all lake sturgeon angling has to happen with a Minnesota license on the American side of the border there.
Have you been to the Northwest Angle?
Yes, I have. Those trips have been in the wintertime, but you want to have some cool shots, pictures in your lifetime. Besides all the amazing fish you'll catch, is take a trip to the Northwest Angle and have a picture next to the marker up there for the northernmost point in the contiguous lower 48 states, and then of course Key West, Florida, also has a similar marker for the southern portion. But yeah, that's one of the claims to fame is up in the Northwest Angle having that marker and having some of that history and being able to get up and go to that place because it's a little more remote and further away and harder to get to, either requiring a remote area border crossing permit or making the border crossing when you're driving, coming back in. There's a phone booth that you go to and you get on the phone and declare that you've made your crossing successfully, and they're tracking your coming and going. But being able to re-enter the United States out of Canada in that little sliver of the Northwest Angle gives you access to some pretty amazing fishing up there. There are some resorts, and then if you go out on your own, as I did a few times, there's some amazing reefs, islands, shoals that don't see anywhere near the fishing pressure that everything on the South Shore does.
Yeah, I've been to the Key West marker a number of times, and I've always wanted to go to the Northwest Angle marker so I can complete doing both of them. But there are some geographic parts of this country that make almost no sense. I
Yep.
mean, the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, it's just Wisconsin. Like,
Yeah.
what happened there? The
Yeah.
the Boot Heel in Missouri, the Panhandle of Oklahoma. We've had, whoever it was that saved that sliver of northern Idaho for Idaho and didn't lose it to Washington or Montana should have a monument made for him. That's the best keep I've seen so far. But even the Northwest Angle, I mean, it's just part of Canada. Like, you got to go to Canada to get to the northernmost part of the United States, which isn't attached to the United States, but yet they still call it contiguous. So
Right. Well, I think Brandon, you're an ambitious guy and a writer. I think we just came up with your next book idea.
yeah.
All those obscure U.S. landmarks. But you're right. We've got some fascinating ones in the U.S., no doubt.
Yeah. So, what are some places, Lake of the Woods, highly recommended. We didn't talk about ice fishing. That's another cool adventure. You go up to any of those resorts, they'll take you out to their ice huts. You ride in a bombardier or something warm to get out there. Super cool. The Igloo Bar, I think we've talked about that on podcasts before. It's actually a bar out on the ice, way out on the ice, and you sit
Was
in
that
this
out Lake
bar
of the
that
Woods?
it
Yes.
is Lake of the Woods.
Really?
Looks like a big igloo. You sit at tables with holes around the table and you ice fish inside this bar. It's super cool. So Ballard's Resort is where Shags is going. I've stayed at Sportsman's. There's a number of good ones up there. You can look up Lake of the Woods resorts. You probably can't go wrong.
Or just go to
Um,
kcmq.com and see the flyer and go fishing with me August 3rd through the 7th.
that's right. Or fly up there, have the bus pick you up in, in
I need
International
that Brandon
Falls.
Butler private jet money so I can just be like, I'll see you guys up
Right.
there, and I'll be waiting at the resort for everyone.
I flew into International Falls one time and got a taxi ride in a car that had like flames on the side of it. Like no joke, like a Joe Dirt looking situation that I got myself into. It was a flamed taxi that drove me all the way from International Falls to Baudette. So it's pretty good
That's
experience.
funny.
So what are some lesser recognized destinations? Lake of the Woods, world class. Go there, great. But if some dude's like, I got to get away from people, I got to get into some good remote fishing, and I'm not telling you to give away somebody's backyard pond, but what are some of the bigger you know, wilderness type experiences people can get into outside of the boundary waters, which we'll get to.
Yeah, I mean, I would recommend. There's some really cool stuff, opportunities that are in north central and starting to skew a little northeast. I'm just hitting on your keywords, talking about wilderness and getting away from people. I think that puts you in the northern part of the state where there aren't the huge population centers associated with Minneapolis, St. Paul. And Voyageurs National Park is a big one. So you're out on Cabotogama Lake. You can get away to some wilderness lakes or just fish on Cabotogama, where it's a larger lake within Minnesota. Boy, what is that, around 15, 20,000 acres? I mean, there's a lot of water out there. Alternatively, there's actually a pretty burgeoning and quite unique houseboat opportunity associated with Voyager. You can go out on Rainy Lake. You can go out on Crane Lake. These are also larger lakes that are chock full of walleye, pike, smallmouth bass. Just really unique fishing opportunities to be able to do that. You don't have to do the houseboat thing. Like, you can do it. We can do it blue collar. You can load up your boat with the provisions that you need and some tents and lay claim. I believe there's some first come first serve sites once you get a pass from Voyageurs National Park to be in there. And yeah, there's places to go and get away. I'm trying to remember. There is a Oh gosh, there's a website somewhere that lists all these free campgrounds, and there's like scattered free campgrounds on lakes, like Chippewa National Forest. I know has some. You can get into Superior National Forest, and even if there's a small fee associated to reserve some that aren't first come first serve, just to get out there and get away from people and have these amazing experiences, because you just blaze out where throw a dart at the map and just do it, because that's the beauty of 11,842 lakes that are over 10 acres in size. There's a lot of options out there.
Do you
Yeah.
follow the, what is it, Unreal Minnesota? Like that content creator where he's like, does this body of water in Minnesota have fish in it? And
Yes,
he just
yes.
goes and he finds some of the randomness, smallest little pods in cities and out of cities. And his whole thing is, don't even bother asking, go try to find it yourself, type of thing. I really enjoy
Yeah,
that
I
kid.
have I have seen that, and I definitely don't want to throw any shade on him. But there's one caveat that I've felt applies to that, which is, part of his message is that these are places that the DNR hasn't been into. No one's been into them. Well, that isn't entirely true. Like what you see on Lake. So let me back up. If you come to Minnesota, this is one really cool thing that we have. You go on to mndnr.gov and you click on this little link called Lake Finder. Our Minnesota Department of Natural Resources puts all this survey data out there for the public to use, and it includes history of surveys, and it includes like stocking history, and it has bathymetry, like lake contours. It's rudimentary. There was a lot of planimetering of lakes that were done. The old drop a weight on a string and measure it in a few places, and then put it all together, smooth it over before you had CAD on paper. And there is that information that's out there. So there's a pretty good collection of data out there, but not everything is on Lake Finder. Some things are not publicly marked for public use. Some of them are special assessments that really are not useful to the general public, but still show that we've surveyed on these locations. So I don't want to, don't take that as a critique against the young man. He does a fantastic job, and I think his message holds true. Like, go out and explore places and you'll have a lot of fun.
Just goes to show how many great fisheries you guys have. You just got water everywhere.
And
Yeah,
that
10,000 lakes isn't even close to reality, is it? How many
no,
lakes do you really have?
well, that's the thing. So all these folks in Wisconsin are like, oh, we've got more lakes, and that is patently false, because because
They're Wisconsin. You can't
if
trust
the
what they got to
if
say.
the, exactly, if the three of us took a pee, on the ground, Wisconsin would count it as a lake. They don't have a definition of what defines a lake. In Minnesota, it has to be at least, what is it, an acre? It's an acre. Is it? I said 10 earlier. It's got to be at least like an acre. I'm gonna do research on the fly here. Hang with me, because I'm gonna say it right. No, it is. Well, I was right the first time. 10 acres. 11,842 lakes that are over 10 acres. So when you put a standard on it of 10 acres, I mean, that there's a lot of wetlands that would get kicked out. If we were including everything under 10 acres, it'd be considerably larger than that. Now, we will absolutely get shut down by the Canadian provinces, way more lakes up there, but it is our claim to fame in the lower 48 for sure. And yeah, there's
So
a lot of opportunities.
do you think we should take Canada as just one state? Like, why are we talking about that? Like, why aren't we talking about like the 51st, 52nd, 53rd, 54th, 50? Like, why wouldn't Manitoba, Saskatchewan, Alberta, why wouldn't they just all be their own states?
I would agree if we're gonna do this, and our Canadian neighbors are mad that we're joking about it, but if we're gonna do it, I'm all for it. All of us that love the outdoors are all for it. It would.
I kind of feel like shit that they're not like, yeah, great idea. Like America's gotten to a point where Canada's like, F that. Like,
No thanks.
like
Hard pass. Hard pass,
yeah,
boys.
hard pass. Like, I mean, it's always made sense though, like let's just add them all as states, and we'll have like if the Big Ten can have 20 teams, these United States can have 59 states. Like,
And we
If
didn't.
the Oregon Ducks can be in the Big
Yep.
Ten, my God.
yeah, right. If Oregon and Rutgers from the Atlantic to the Pacific can be
Yes.
in the Midwestern Conference, then let's just come on, Canadians. Let's not be assholes about this. Like,
Oh,
I mean,
can't wait to go.
Americans as well. Like, let's meet up there at International Falls, shake hands, and become the most powerful nation in the world.
Yes. There'd be no question about where what country has the best hunting and fishing. That would make things so much easier.
Yeah, because right now Canada is the only other one in the conversation,
Yes.
and they
Yep.
probably got us beat.
Yes.
Yeah, and I don't like that.
And here I as a Big Ten, went to a Big Ten school. I was hoping that Missouri was going to get pulled in. At least it made sense
Well,
geographically, but
yeah, I wish Missouri was in the Big Ten. Um, it doesn't make sense that we have USC and UCLA playing Minnesota. I don't like it.
well, once Concordia goes Division 1, then they'll be wrapped into, and then they will retire Shags jersey.
Are you are you guys like conference homers though? Like I'm always a conference homer. Like once my team is out, then I want someone from the conference to win.
Except the states that surround Minnesota, I'm not rooting for them.
Yeah.
No. Once my
So you-
team's out, I'm rooting against everyone.
So you're not pulling for Purdue?
No.
Oh,
Come on, man.
I'll pull for Purdue. You're not next to
Thanks,
us.
Scott.
Great egg college, has a good fisheries program, and I was super happy to see BYU knock out Wisconsin. So yeah.
Yeah.
I was actually at Concordia. They recruited us to come in because we were the first year they went from NAIA to Division 2, and they had the restriction on there where you couldn't have any type of playoff for 2 years. So
Sure.
they recruited a bunch of us junior college guys to come in because they didn't want to be bottom of the pack for recruiting forward. So like, we don't want them good enough to win a championship, but we don't want them to be in last place. And I can assure you, we did our jobs. We were
Very
we were
mediocre.
best at being mediocre, baby, right in the middle of the pack.
Nice.
Well, we should probably talk about the Boundary Waters. So you're a Boundary Waters veteran. I've always dreamed to go into the Boundary Waters. It sounds like there's a chance we make that happen this summer.
I'm super excited. I get to take a lot of trips. I get to do a lot of hunting and fishing. I consider myself very blessed. I mean, I get to do it in my day job, and then it dovetails with where I met the two of you gentlemen through our outdoor media, living it as a writer, getting to do all kinds of stuff, and despite all the things that I do, the trip that I probably look forward to the most is to load everything up and head into the Boundary Waters. Having a familiarity of where to go, being able to fish and get a Grand Slam opportunity, which is a chance at lake trout, northern pike, smallmouth bass, and walleye. All four of those within the same short trip. Being able to eat fresh walleye cooked over a campfire, just like we were talking about those shore lunches earlier. I even in my older age now, I'm starting to get a little too fancy, bringing along enough stuff to make fish tacos, packing in like avocados and a and a head of coleslaw, or a cabbage, I should say. So it starts getting pretty fancy, but man, we really have a great time. The ambiance is incredible. Falling asleep to loons calling, getting pictures that I wouldn't call myself a great photographer, but sometimes it's just being in the right place at the right time. And Brant, you guys have been out to a GLOW, Association of Great Lakes Outdoor Writers, where even a blind pig like me can find a nut from time to time and take some pictures in the boundary waters that are really just absolutely gorgeous. And just incredible fishing. It's there's times that I felt like every cast I was going to catch a fish, or being able to throw on a set of polarized sunglasses and be looking down in the water and sight fishing for walleyes over the side of the canoe. Things like that, those are memories that you're never ever going to lose. And I am absolutely super excited to take the trip. And actually, I'm going to have some homework from Mr. Butler. Yesterday, I recorded a video within our Department of Natural Resources on some uh, fishing tips for the boundary waters, canoe fishing in the boundary waters, and it's about an hour long recording. And I'm gonna say, tune in and pay attention. Then you'll be ready to come in on day one and slam them.
I like
So
it, man. The true
what's the
expert.
difference? What's the difference between the Boundary Waters and Lake of the Woods? Because I'm completely wrong. I thought it was the same thing. It's clearly not.
So the Boundary Waters Canoe Area Wilderness is a 1.1 million acre chunk that was set aside with the 1964 Wilderness Act and the 1978 Boundary Waters Canoe Area Wilderness Acts. These are federal regulations that set aside this land to create this wilderness protected area. And there's other, folks talk about boundary waters, or maybe it's kind of used as a replacement for like border waters, or being on the boundary with Canada, that sort of thing. But yeah, this little section of northeastern Minnesota, that it's not a complete congruent match, but on the Canadian side, it's Quetico Provincial Park, which is also a wilderness area. So we've got these two contiguous chunks of land in the United States and Canada that are these designated wilderness areas for canoe travel, and they have absolutely incredible fishing opportunities. You have to just take the time to, one, follow their rules, two, pick up a permit, and they are both limited entry systems. There's only so many visitors that are allowed at a time, which I've got a permit in hand. They open them up on the American side, administered through the U.S. Forest Service. As soon as the end of January comes and permit day is there, I try to pick up my permits and plan ahead, and that's what I did. And in June, we're going to get out and head out on Saginaw Lake for what will be quite an adventure.
So how many people do you get to bring on your permit?
The permit allows up to 9 people. Originally, we had like 6. Now I had a couple that had to back out, so we're down to 4. So kind of scrapping around and seeing. It's hard for people to commit when you're going to be out for close to a full week, but I tell people, if you can go, it's pretty darn magical.
And is
So
that
you have
for just
two.
one time out of the year, or can you use that permit as many times as you want and can get away?
You will, the permit draw, or the permits first come first serve are based on your entry day. So they're limiting how many can go in per day. But if you use it for that particular trip, you are going to declare when you're going in, when you're coming out. When you on the permit, no one's checking up on you to see that you did actually come out on the day that you declared, but they want you to follow suit with that, just so they have dispersed use of this wilderness area.
So it's a one time deal then.
Yep, per
Gotcha.
permit. Yep.
Permit. Yes. Interesting.
It should just be absolutely fantastic. I mean, I like the first trip of the year is the fishing trip. I mean, it's there specifically for the fishing. It's hardcore fishing. Some of the best fishing you'll experience, because water temperatures are down. Fish are just in a mood to feed. They're up shallow. They're in very predictable locations, and again, you have that chance. You'll see spawning bass, or if they're not spawning, they're just immediately post spawn. You'll have a chance, because you don't have to go particularly deep by this time of the year. It's early enough in the summer that you can get on those lake trout without having to put it down deep. The pike are still up shallow. They're a cool water species, so it starts getting too warm, they move out of the shallows. And yeah, the walleyes are still up on structure and up shallow. So it's just everything is waiting to take a bite out of your lure, and it's
What kind
awesome.
of equipment are you taking?
I like to take in 2 to 3 rods, and you can bring some other reels. I'll bring a line counter reel to be able to target lake trout at depth and have an idea of what my running depth is going to be. Other than that, it's maybe a bait caster that I'll throw some lures for large pike, but otherwise it's a lot of spinning gear with monofilament and a fluorocarbon leader. A lot of times fishing a leech under a jig. You're talking about the first time fishing with leeches in Minnesota. Brandon's going to become very familiar with leeches.
I
Maybe
fish with a lot. I fish with a lot of leeches.
so.
Yeah,
He's
Pulls him right
he's
off himself.
yeah, he's good.
I
He's
keep a
good.
supply. I put them. I put 'em on my lip when I need the next one, like to get real
Here we
quick.
go. Oh, that's a good one.
Mhm.
Yep. No, they travel nicely because you can let the water out of the container, get through your portage, get to the next lake, fill it back up with water. Leeches travel very well. They're a great bait. And bobber fish those, throwing a jig and a minnow, real basic stuff. You can. It's kind of like I was saying about going to Lake of the Woods. Honestly, you could probably throw just about anything on there.
You
And
take leeches in with you. You don't catch them while you're in there.
that's right. We'll pack them in. Yep.
So how much stuff are you packing? I got your list. I think you might have sent the wrong list. It was kind of a hunting list. So,
Well, so
uh,
did you go down on the tabs? So if everyone's wondering what I
nah, yeah.
Okay, so if everyone's wondering what I do, this is a good tip of the week. Driftwood Outdoors tip of the week. So I keep a Google spreadsheet, right? This is something that's then shared in cyberspace. You can share it with others. And down on those tabs on the spreadsheet,
Uh,
there's different tabs. So there's like Western Big Game Hunt. That's your pack list, right? I'm at this point, like if I don't keep a list, I'm gonna forget something. Hell, I've showed up at a hotel room without tomorrow's underwear. So I got to make a list. So we there's a pretty long list of things for that Boundary Waters trip because you are self-sufficient. But the
yeah.
beauty for you coming along is this is like a turnkey trip. I need you to bring your overnight, like your clothing, and we'll figure out a way to get you a tent. I have extras.
Oh, I've got
So
plenty of tents.
yeah, so sleeping bag and pad and all that, and your fishing gear. And after that, like I have the rest. I have the camp cookware. I have the water filter. I have, all of that stuff. The mini stoves that you need. Like, and I
Hmm.
have. I'll take care of all the food. So it is as close to a wilderness turnkey trip. And we do it dirt cheap. It just pay me back for the food, pay me back for the permit, and it's the cheapest, awesome fishing you'll have of your life.
I'm excited.
Almost makes me think about getting back in the canoe.
We got to get a mega sized canoe. You can't take the raft. You could take the raft. It would be a tough portage.
Oh boy, could you imagine trying to haul that
Carry that
thing
thing
from?
a mile.
Yeah, hard pass.
One of those big ass Tilly's boats from the white there, yeah, Branson. There we go.
Well, can we just get a duck, run it
Yeah,
like on the wheels over the portage?
yeah. I'll just look the other way, everyone.
But that's the beauty. There's no motors in there at all. I
hmm
mean, none.
Yeah, thank you for pointing that out. So this is a wilderness area, nothing motorized. You get in there on your sweat equity. You're paddling, and that's I'd say. Our longest portage is going to be about a quarter mile. There are some places that the portage is a mile or two, but it's relatively easy where we're heading into. You can get out and fish a variety of lakes that have lake trout, move up and down, have walleye opportunities, have everything. But yeah, it's all done, on your paddling and your ability to get yourself from point A to point B.
I love it. I love it.
When are you guys
Did,
planning on doing this trip?
We are taking off on the 7th of June, and we got to make sure that Mr. Butler is back for his daughter's high school graduation party. We will darn sure get out there. His life is in my hands. I know I've got to baby
that's
him a little bit. He's not all that capable, but we'll get him back.
yes.
Just
I'll
hold
bring
his
my
hand. You'll be fine.
no calluses on these hands
Yeah,
anymore.
dishwashing hands.
Well, that's just been my hang up is Annabelle, and her graduation and making sure it fits and all that. But I'm
and it
ready. I'm
and it
ready. It
fit
fits.
it fits perfectly. So I'm
Mhm.
super excited to have you down there because I just know, just so I'm gonna make you blush a little bit, Brandon. But so everyone knows that listens to this podcast, um, Brandon is a friend to so many different people, and when I first met Brandon back 8 years ago, he didn't know me from Adam, but he said, "Hey, let's go hunting. Grab your gun. Grab this. Hey, let's go do this. Let's go do that." When you're willing to put yourself out there and treat everyone, that even the people that you just met like your best friend, pretty remarkable person. So I am just knowing how much enjoyment you're going to get out of this, how you're going to value this. Our times together in woods and waters, just the few times we've done it, I know how much this is going to mean to you, how much you're going to appreciate it. So you've earned it for just being a good human being.
Oh, thanks, man. Well, that's super nice of you. And the other side of the coin is having you down here to shoot a big Missouri whitetail. So that's the fun of it, is when you get into these circles of friends. We've had a lot of people on that you would know, Scott, like Pat and Cameralton, and so many others that we all are kind of swimming in that same stream. And when we get to go experience what everybody else loves and enjoys, that's what makes it great. And to go with someone like you on a trip like that and see your passion for it manifested into becoming a teacher, that's going to be really cool. Yeah.
No, I'm excited as well, and yeah, whenever we get a chance to do a Missouri hunt, I'll be looking forward to that. It's I say I don't get rich doing it, but man, am I rich in experiences and friends. Holy cow.
Well, that's something I'd like you to talk about a little bit. I've had a neat connection. Only talked to the kid a couple of times. He's a student at Purdue right now. His uncles were my roommates in college for, well, a year or so, and we were all in the same fraternity, but we all left at the same time, went and got a house. And unfortunately, it was Eric and Greg, and we've lost Eric. He had a really, really sad story with cancer, brain cancer, and he lost his battle. So when I had their nephew, it's Greg and Eric's nephew, reach out to me for advice on a career in fish and wildlife, I told him, look, man, what I think could really set you apart is showing an ability to communicate early. Like, I've talked about my frustrations often with the really smart people being unable to communicate with the average people. I mean, if you look at the discourse on Facebook now and you read, what people are writing, it's like they buy into the things that are easier to understand. And when scientists go off on scientific speak, they lose the public. So you're a perfect example, Scott, of somebody who has really made a name for themselves as a communicator, but you're still by day a biologist. So you've been able to marry the two together, and that's why you're going off to Florida to fish on a media trip on your vacation, and other people aren't. And you take that scientific knowledge and break it down, and that's what I was telling this young man he needs to do. He's like, what should I do right now to help me get the best job I can get? And I was like, start a YouTube channel today and go out in the woods and film yourself in doing 10 different things. Like, explain oak tree identification, explain what a buck rub is, just explain basic shit so your potential boss can see that you have this ability to communicate. Like, don't worry about how many people view it. It's basically an online resume for you. And think about it. Like, if you didn't write and if you didn't do podcasts and videos and all the media stuff you do, like, how different would your career be?
That's a great question because I can point to starting off as an outdoor communicator before I had employment as a fisheries biologist. One came before the other, and you're 100% right. You've given great advice to that individual and to all young people about get out there and be an effective communicator, because I feel like if you can do that, you're going to be employable about anywhere. The other takeaway that I would take from what you're describing and what I know to be true of the three of us here is that if you want to be successful in this, you're a grinder. Like, you don't think twice about the fact that it's going to take you extra work to sit there and pound out a podcast, write a story, edit a video, whatever it might be. Like, that's just in your nature, because if you were going to make it in this world, there was all these other people that wanted to do the same thing in outdoor media. And the same was true for our folks that want to do fish and wildlife natural resource management. Last week, I just started a new technician, and we had over 100 people that applied for that position. Another posting that came up recently had over 200 people that applied. How are you going to differentiate yourself from these hundreds of applicants? Well, if you went out and did all these other things, you were used to grinding, you didn't think twice about it. It's just, you knew that that was the bare minimum, the prerequisite to be successful in what you were doing. So I think your advice was very sound on a many different levels.
Oh, thanks, man. And grind we do. I mean, anybody far along in their career that's, had any success knows that, it's time in to get money out. Like, you know, we had the great strokeation when Shags went down with a stroke. That's what it took for us to miss a week. And we only missed a few, otherwise we've done this almost 300 weeks in a row. Like, I was stuck behind a farm truck. I got home with 12 minutes to go before we had to start this podcast from my day job. I had to make a cup of coffee and squeeze all this into 12 minutes. I still haven't, it's 7:09. I haven't been inside of my family yet today, you know. So it's work, but it's the best part of the work I do.
Yeah, it's
Well,
that part. It's that part of, like, if you love what you're doing, it's not really work. So that's how I cope with the grinding. You were gonna say,
Well, it's
Shakes?
certainly not for the money.
Yeah, no.
no, we're just talking about the grinding, and I'm looking, going, "Oh God, it's already after 7 o'clock. It's going to be my bedtime. I got to be up
Yeah.
at 4 a.m."
Well, Savannah's out for work, so you're bacheloring it, huh? You're gonna
Oh
party
man,
till about 7:30 tonight and
dude, I
then hit
thought
the bed.
last night I was like, "Oh, Savannah's out. Like, I'm gonna stay up. I might play. Let's watch a movie, maybe play some video games." Yeah, right. I was in bed by like 7:15, just out like a light. I'm one of those people that has to get like 8+ hours of sleep to function. If it's 7.5, if it's 6, I am just not myself, miserable, and yeah, the older I get, the more sleep I need, I think. But it
Scott,
helps.
I'm somewhat acting as a biologist currently, a fisheries biologist, as I'm stocking my own lake. I did the initial stocking. You'll appreciate this with 500 yellow perch, which aren't native to where we're at here. We're a little bit south of the native range. Now there are yellow perch all the way down into Arkansas. Bull Shoals is a border lake with Arkansas and Missouri that produced the state record for now until I get these babies all plumped up.
You gotta stop dropping 6-pound bass in there if you want them to get
That's
all
the
plumped up.
problem. That's the problem. Is we're self-stocking this lake, and I hit a crappie hole in another pond the other night, and I took 45 crappie all over 10 inches and put them into my lake. We've got 23 largemouth now. All of them are over 3 pounds. So we have no bass under 3, no crappie under 10 inches, and we've put about 100. So we've got 76 crappie in right now, 23 largemouth, a huge forage base. We were throwing a cast net the other day to see what kind of forage we've got going. It's pretty awesome. We did catch 2 like 10-inch bass, and I put them in an aquarium that I've got some little bluegill in and 1 big yellow perch. And they ate one of the little bluegill, and I thought I was going to be okay with it. And then all the other bluegill that I had been like watching for a couple of weeks now were like all huddled up in the corner, and I was like, all right, I got to get the bullies out of here. So I
Yeah.
I took the pond. So I guess there's 25 largemouth. There's 23 over 3 pounds and 2 under 12 inches. But I couldn't let them like I would go up to the aquarium, and like one of those little bluegill would just like stare into my soul and be like, why are you doing this? Like, why did
Help
you put them in?
me! Help
Yeah.
me!
So I did. We took a little bass back out and put them in the lake. Yeah.
I've been burned on that. I remember I kept tropical fish, and of course, I'm a big fish nerd. When I was a kid, besides doing all the fishing, we had tropical hatchet fish. So they're this fish that hangs up on the very surface of the water. They're shaped like a deep-bodied fish, like the shape of a hatchet. You can Google them later, but I had spent all this money on these tropicals, and I caught this little itty bitty, yearling bass. Like, oh, what the hell? I'll throw it in the tank because at the, our rules we could actually do that. And I got home like the next day after I'd thrown it in there, and like two of my hatchet fish are gone. And I remember how I had worked hard to pay for those damn things at the aquarium shop, and out came the bass, out came my pocket knife, slit it open, and I'm like, don't ever mix those. That was an early lesson in screwing around with my fish stocking. So you're doing better than I am.
Well,
Yeah.
that's funny. Well, we can't
So-
let you get out of here without the mystery bait bucket, which is an actual antique bait bucket. We got the Midway Antique Mall full of questions submitted by you, the listener, friends, family, fans of the show. You can submit a question by emailing info@drifthoodoutdoors.com. You can also send us a direct message through Instagram and Facebook, both Driftwood Outdoors, or you can just leave us a comment on our YouTube channel, Driftwood Outdoors TV. This one, this is appropriate for us. This one very rarely does have anything to do with the outdoors, and this one kind of does. Jake Reachers asks, "What's your go-to wild game recipe?"
Who
Well,
wants
there's
to
a
take that
thing
one? Go
called a
for it.
microwave and a hot pocket that comes with a sleeve. Trevor, Brandon always likes to give me a hard time that I don't cook, that I'm the beanie weenies and hot pocket guy. So I don't have a lot, but I do have one wild game recipe, and that's the barbecue salmon fillet, which is very simple. You skin down on some tin foil, lemon pepper like crazy, some lemon juice. I used to do brown sugar and bourbon, but the older I get, I like just to have the taste of the salmon. I'll chop up some onions and separate the rings around on it, wrap it up in tin foil, and you just cook it until the meat starts flaking. I used to do it so much I could tell just by the sound that it was making in the tin foil if it was ready or not. But that's my go-to wild game recipe. If I have a salmon fillet, I can throw it on the grill and it's pretty tasty.
Man, it's hard to pick just one, but since we've been on the topic of fish, I was up at Devil's Lake fishing, and I am as big of a fan of a fish fry as anyone I've ever met. But talking about getting older, like that fried food just gets harder and harder to, take down the way I used to take it down. So when we were up there, one of the old timers was gonna bake some walleye, and I was like, man, I got an extra box of shore lunch over here. Like we don't have to do that. We don't have to bake this fish. But he just lightly seasoned it, put some uh lemon on it, and then I had drawn butter for it, and man, it was incredible. Like I know that's crossing over another you're getting old threshold when you're like baked fish, like, but it was so damn good. So
God, remember when Chris Nelson put the crappie
oh
slabs
yeah,
on the Traeger? Because
crappie on the Traeger.
that was
So
something else. That was
uh,
really good.
I guess growing up, I thought the only way you could eat fish was fried, but trying to be healthier, getting those heart scans. So I'm gonna start baking a lot more fish.
All right, Brandon, you get yourself on a cleanse for like the next 3 months, figure 2 months at least, because you're going to be eating a lot of fried fish on our
Yeah.
trip, man.
What's your go-to fish fry batter?
Louisiana fish fry, the
Really?
cornmeal.
See, I
Yeah,
love shore lunch. I've loved shore lunch since Al Linder hawked that shit.
sure, sure. I'm gonna go since I already gave the goods up on how much I love a good fish fry, and you got my fish tacos and that Louisiana fish fry is my favorite batter. But stepping away, go to wild game, whether it's turkeys, wild turkeys, if it's pheasants, rough grouse here in Minnesota, and occasionally are dabbling in puddle ducks for waterfall. Lighter meat as opposed to darker meat, or redder meat, I should say, in the diving ducks, for example, and geese for that matter. I love to do a schnitzel. So you take your meat, You get to beat it flat with a mallet, and then you do the triple soak, right? You got your egg wash. You start with the flour, then the egg wash, then the panko, a little Dijon mustard, kind of salt and pepper, and then you fry that, and then bake it a little bit longer. And absolutely love it that way. My kids love it that way, and it's something we look forward to. Talking about springtime coming up here, turkey hunt. Whatever hits the ground first, we're gonna have turkey schnitzel.
You're the second person to bring up the turkey schnitzel, the first being Steve Ranella when he was at Driftwood Acres. He schnitzeled a turkey,
That's
and
right.
I've been doing it ever since, man. Beating those turkey breasts flat and frying them. So
So good.
keeping good company on your recipe there.
Well, do we got a final cast of the pod? Final thoughts?
I'm excited to go on this trip. I've loved Minnesota. I've looked forward to going to Minnesota for as long as I can remember. I mean, I would count down the days to go with Grandma and Grandpa up there again, and I've got great memories in Minnesota. And from what I know about the Boundary Waters, Scott's right. It's going to be one of those very special places that I assume I will fall in love with. And I hope this is the first of many trips into a wilderness area where you hear nothing but loons and fish splashing.
Well,
So appreciate the invite, man.
You bet.
I enjoyed reminiscing too about the old college days and my time spent in Minnesota. And if you're anywhere near the Baudette area, August 3rd to the 7th, stop into Ballard's and say hi. It'd be great to meet you in person, man. Appreciate you taking the time to jump on the podcast and talk everything Minnesota.
And those people that are wanting to go to Minnesota, Shags' trip, it really is a good deal.
It's a great deal. You couldn't do what we're doing for that price on your own. It's a steal.
Guided fishing. It'll be fantastic. No, guys, I've enjoyed spending the time here with you today. It was a great opportunity to get together after a fun day at work. And now when I sign off, we'll get with the kids, have the last archery practice of the year before state, and away we'll go.
Good luck at state, man.
That's
awesome,
man.
Thank you.
Are you a coach?
Yeah, wife and I are coaching. She's got elementary, I've got the high school.
That's
so cool.
Super cool.
All right, well, best of luck.
Thank you, guys.
All right, gear review coming up next. Into the podcast, the beginning of a gear review. Brandon, what are you reviewing for us today?
Dave Ramsey. Listen up, kids. Listen up. This is the gear review that you should pay attention to more than any. I've got a kid that's a sophomore in college and one that's getting ready to go in September. Looking back, it sure would have been nice if there'd been some savings put away for those kids to go to college. Getting through it now, quite the struggle. So learn from my mistake, get financially sound sooner in life. I went through the Dave Ramsey class maybe 10 years ago and absolutely recommend it to anybody. So we talk all the time about the things that you learn in school and the things that you don't learn in school, and how you don't spend a year of your life in high school learning just about managing money and being smart about your money. It's a shame that you don't come out of school with that kind of knowledge. So if you have any concern at all about trying to get a little bit better at managing money, like take a local Dave Ramsey course or log into his podcast videos. It's absolutely worth it. And your kids will be happy that you did.
I really enjoy all the fake social media posts. Have you seen those that they say they're from Dave Ramsey and your 401k can't shoot a deer, so buy that gun, or that 401k can't harvest this, so buy your bow? It just always makes me laugh.
Well, yeah. I mean, don't get me started. When they want to doge a few things, they should, doge where, a lot of those checks are going to people who have lived with that mentality that now we get to keep alive. Yay.
Oh yeah. So for mine, I got to give Max a shout out. I got to meet him at the Man Show that we had in Columbia a couple of weeks ago, probably a month ago now. But he started Como Fly Company. It's guided fishing trips and hand-tied flies. And he's a super cool dude, a lot of mutual friends. I sat at his booth and visited with him for a very long time. I bought a couple of his flies that I'm excited to give it a shot. This nice little streamer here.
Little articulation.
It's got a fun little dinghy there at the end. And then this one, I'm a big fan of that one too. So can't wait to get on the river we no longer speak of and do some fishing with them. So check them out. really good guy, very knowledgeable. He's just starting out. Como Fly Co. He's got a website, and it's just comoflyco.com or comoflyco@gmail.com is his email.
We'll see you down the trail.